We are recording. So I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the amendment of Bill H3548 and Governor Healy's signing of such amendment into law in March of 2023, expressing certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And as always, we list the guidelines that please use the chat or raise hand function if you want to address the board. People will usually remain on mute until they're actually addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names on their Zoom accounts. All that said, per tradition, we'll start with a roll call of present members. I am Brian Barabee.
Jim Garrity.
Paul Brandvold.
Excellent. All right, first up this evening. Excuse me. Sorry, the Bolton Conservation Commission, excuse me. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now open the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 0 Butternut Lane, map 6.E, parcel 37. Is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here tonight? I see Tom Schultz from Goddard.
Nope.
Perfect. And you should be unmuted.
We all set?
We are all set. Could you give us a quick rundown of this? And can I ask, is this a project that came up before and then we kind of had stopped on? Okay, go ahead.
Correct.
I was looking at the pictures. I'm like, I think I know this.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting. I'm here with the applicant, Pam Duggan, who is also on the hearing tonight, and this is for 0 Butternut Lane. The agenda, just a note, has the wrong applicant. We had a little bit of a, I guess, a snafu with the first submittal in 2023 with Pam Duggan's parents, Pat Lobo and Bob Lobo, who were the original applicants on there. Bob withdrew the application. Now we're back with Pam as the applicant and the landowner, and we're here to request a single-family house on the lot with some grading and a couple of retaining walls. So as Brian said before, I have been in front of you for this parcel. That was back in 2021 with a different applicant and also a different configuration, as we'll speak about when I bring up the site plan. But those past meetings were taken into consideration when making these changes to the site plan, which we'll go over in a second. So let's share my screen quickly.
Please. So
just a quick update on and refresher for anybody on the commission that wasn't here during the 2021 site and notice of intent. This is the lot. Currently it's a undeveloped horse paddock lot. It's kind of grown in with some shrubs that are like kind of consistent with agricultural fields. It has grasses, etc. There's no wetlands on the actual site. However, there is a pond down to the south right here, which is in the green. That's also denoting the flood zone. However, there's no flood zone on the site. There's also a perennial stream that's up here to the north here. And this is the FEMA Flood Zone X shown in the orange. And that's a non-jurisdictional flood zone under the state of Massachusetts. It doesn't reach the site, so we don't have to deal with that either. Just a quick look at the USGS map. Again, we have the pond right here, just off site, a perennial stream with a small amount of bordering vegetated wetland. The buffer zone doesn't reach the site up to the north here. And then we have the site here shown in red. So we zoom out. The applicant is proposing a single family house, driveway, septic system, and some grading on the existing site. We have the pond shown down here in the blue. This is the 75-foot buffer zone shown in the dark blue. We have the 100-foot buffer zone shown in the light blue right here. Up in the corner, up in this section, is the 100-foot riverfront area off of the site. we also have the 200-foot riverfront area, which does encroach onto the site. However, there's not going to be any work proposed in this area. Previously, we had the driveway, parts of the house encroaching into the buffer zone. However, we changed up how the house is going to be actually built on the site. So now there's going to be no impervious surfaces aside from this retaining wall in the buffer zone at all. The only work within buffer zone or riverfront area is this small amount of grading right here and this retaining wall. And these are necessary in order to keep all of the impervious surfaces out of the buffer zone. Because if we were going to lessen this grading right here, we'd have the driveway encroaching on and into the buffer zone as we had previously come in front of you. As you can see, there's no work shown in the riverfront area right here. The limit of work is outlined in this kind of dashed line. That is also the erosion control on the site, and that's going to be staked hay bales as seen down in this graphic down in this section of the plan. This area shown in the brown is going to be left alone, and that's going to be naturalized field as it currently stands on the site today. The area shown in green is going to be lawn, and that's the only areas on the site that's going to be developed with lawn, all within inside of the limit of work. And again, no impervious surfaces are proposed within buffer zone over riverfront area. So if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. Other than that, I'd be requesting that the commission grant an order of conditions for this. We do have a DEP file number, DEP file number 112-0734. So again, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. You say I somewhat remember the site because we were out there before. I understand it's a completely different filing. I appreciate, from what I can remember, where you have moved it off of that pond. I know that was some of our concerns before because it really did drain directly into the pond. Looking at the plans themselves, I can see how this is an improvement, and I appreciate how you were trying to get out of all the buffer zones. I don't know that I have any questions right now so much as I would like to do a site visit for this one. I'd like to see this one laid out in the field, kind of a center line of driveway, what the house box will be, and then where that 100-foot buffer zone cuts in.
Yeah, that can definitely be arranged for sure.
And that I think, again, I don't have any initial questions. I'd kind of like to see it laid out that way. And to see if I have any additional questions from that. So I don't have anything right now, but let me ask, are there any members of the commission that have any initial questions or thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I think a visit would help, but for now, the retaining wall, how tall is it? And therefore, how big is this grading going to be?
So it looks like from the site plan, the retaining wall is going to be about 6 feet tall at the tallest point. This is the only grading that's taking place on the whole site here, and then the retaining wall is going to loop around back here, and we're going to have a similar grade. So this is 272 right here, so it's going to be a similar grade to this. So back here in this, the retaining wall is going to be only about a foot, if anything, and then down in this section, we'll have about a 6-foot retaining wall. And that is designed specifically to keep the driveway and the house outside of the buffer zone to increase any impervious surfaces. So the only work going on here is going to be the addition of some lawn, the grading, and the retaining wall. That's the only work within a jurisdictional resource on the site.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I think a site visit would be very helpful.
Okay. Any members of the public here tonight that have questions or wish to comment on this particular hearing? Sorry. Not used to hosting duties. I'm not seeing anybody raising a hand or okay.
So are we going to schedule a site walk offline, or do you want to just schedule one right now, just so we can?
Yeah, we'll
we
always schedule them offline. We won't discuss those publicly usually as to when our availability is. we'll try and we'll definitely get that set up before our next meeting. The next meeting right now, let me double check. I believe is going to be the first Tuesday in October. Let me just double check.
So we're looking at October 3rd, if I'm correct.
That I believe is our next. So hold on one second. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the first Tuesday in October. So it would be October 3rd.
Okay.
And I think we can put you guys on at 7 o'clock again. I think you're our first.
That would be great.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 0 Butternut Lane until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 3rd at 7 o'clock p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah, we'll reach out tomorrow and try to schedule a site visit. We are actually a half a minute ahead of time. Well, I can ask now for commission members, did you have a chance to look at the minutes in the packet? And if so, any corrections, changes, edits?
Looks good.
All set.
All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our September 15th, 2023. And I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our August 15th, 2023 and our September 5th, 2023 meetings as drafted and presented at this evening's meeting. I hear a second for minute approval.
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. We're just about there on time. All right. All right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for request for determination of applicability under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233 for 76 East End Road, Map 5.E, Parcel 88, submitted by Tim Driscoll. Mr. Driscoll, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you gentlemen tonight?
Good. So when last we met, we had scheduled a site visit to go out and take a look at what was being proposed. Myself and Jim Garey were able to go out there this week and take a look. Just to give a quick rundown for those watching at home, and Jim, I'll ask you for your additions afterwards. It seemed a pretty clean project as far as where the deck was going. It's going over existing lawn, abutting the house. There is some small demolition and repair of some things on the house. But the areas where this is all taking place is kind of existing lawn. Second. It's also fenced. The backyard is fenced, maintained lawn, and then beyond the fence, there is a stream that runs. I'm not sure if it's listed as an intermittent stream or perennial. They said it runs most of the time. It was running pretty heavy nowadays, but you can see where the houses were pulled up kind of away from it. But I thought the limit of the project, what was being proposed and where it was being proposed, seemed pretty much in line with things we've accepted before, and was not going to have a major impact on the wetland or the resource areas in that general area. Jim, I don't know, I rambled for a bit there. Did that jive with some of the stuff you saw? Do you have additional comments?
No, I think you got it, Brian. Thank you.
All right. The one thing I did mention, and I honestly do not know this to be the case at all, But between the fence and the river, I know there is a small strip of maintained lawn, and then it's kind of naturalized.
Yeah.
So you might want to check on the original order of conditions. Usually that fence would be the end of it, and they possibly would have asked for everything back there to be naturalized beyond the fence. I don't know that that's the case. It might not be the case, but this is just something to let the current homeowner know. They might want to let everything beyond the fence just naturalize and not mow it anymore.
Sure.
But they can find that on their deed. They can find that on the original orders for the house. But when it comes to this particular project, as proposed, are there any additional comments or questions from members of the commission? All right. And are any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And again, I'm not seeing any. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 76 East End Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an I myself. I'd like to make a motion. We have a -3 determination for the request for determination of applicability for 76 East End Road, with the following conditions: that the fence in the backyard also serve as the limit of work for this particular project, and that the stockpiling of materials be kept out of the resource area to the greatest extent practicable. In other words, best to store stuff on the driveway, bring it around to work on it, not store stuff down by the stream, if that makes sense.
Understood. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, that is my motion, a -3 determination with those additional conditions. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. Mr. Driscoll, we will figure out our next steps. I know we will draw up that RDA with those additional conditions.
Okay.
I know commission members have to sign it, and then they'll get you a copy. They'll either mail it to you, you can pick it up. They have to submit a copy, but I'm not sure that full process. And we'll ask our friends in town hall to kind of walk you through what the next steps are.
Perfect. Thank you.
It has been approved, and we'll move it forward from here.
Okay, great. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, you take care.
Thank you.
All right. Technically, we have about 10 minutes before our next scheduled hearing.
Brian, if I may,
Go ahead, Kristen.
I just emailed Kelly Cardoza for 159 Ballville. She's
Yeah.
with the Avalon Consulting, and I also emailed Jonathan Mecklin.
Okay.
I forgot to do that earlier in case they were joining. They should know where to go to find the link, or should have asked me before 7:20 p.m. But I did want to let you know I just did email them.
Okay,
Where all the other ones are continued. Everybody else should have the information.
that's excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Kristen. Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate that. Sorry, just looking down our agenda to see what we can get to. I know we have the enforcement order updates listed. And again, it's the same updates as last time. To the best of my knowledge, East End Road and John Powers Lane are both moving forward. We're kind of waiting for the growing season to finally just kind of cross them off. And I haven't received an update on Century Mill Estates. So nothing sadly new to report there. And again, our favorite reminder, if you have not yet had a chance to review our FY24 budget, it should be on our shared drive. I know Rebecca had sent around one of the early iterations. I don't think it has changed since the last time she sent it around, but if I can find the latest version and send that around myself. Same with the wetland bylaw regulation draft. I think I was happy with it as it was drafted, but again, if you have a chance, we still have a chance to kind of review that, make any changes. I'm not sure. As different boards and different members of the town see it, if they'll have any changes or recommend any changes. But if you have a chance to go in and refamiliarize yourself with it, that would be excellent. Forest Legacy project has been fully funded. I think we updated that one last time. We do have a number of our trails connectivity improvement projects that are still ongoing. I know we have listed those. As always, we are looking for a volunteer land steward. If anybody has volunteer time they want to just put out there, great way to get to know all of the parcels here in town. And there is always room available on the Conservation Commission as well. We are at least 2 members short. So we're always looking for new members. If anybody for some random reason happens across the recording of this particular hearing, we would love to have you come and join us on the Conservation Commission. As far as I know, the open space and recreation plan is still going along strong. Again, I know people have put a lot of work into that, and the survey for anybody in town is open until October 1st. So please make sure you participate in the survey if you haven't already. And I think that brings us through most of our agenda that has not already been scheduled with a time. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to try to remember if we have to continue anything to try to put the times closer together. All right. All right. Well,
So we'll take a 6-minute break then. Right.
That's basically, and I think as the host, I basically need to stay here and keep it recording. But if anybody else needs to take a 5 or 6 minute break, yeah,
good.
Feel free. I can ramble on incoherently for hours sometimes. I will point out to those at home, and well, I should apologize to all the applicants here tonight, and all of our legions of fans watching at home. I think we had mentioned last meeting that our town's conservation agent is currently out on family leave, and we miss her terribly. But everybody else in town is scrambling to help us keep the commission running. So we will be possibly stumbling and bumbling through some of these hearings, even more so than normal. We will try to keep everything moving along at a good pace. Sometimes we will run into questions we do not have answers for, and it will take us some time to research them and find them. I apologize for that in advance. And again, sometimes there may be questions that I do not have the full appropriate answer for, as far as what the town bylaws might say offhand, or what legally is required for this or that. And I apologize in advance. We will do our best to get through this time, and appreciate all the help we've been getting from town employees, from employees of other towns, and just citizens here in town trying to help us get through while we are short a very important person who's at home dealing with a short person. But yeah, if anybody wants to take a 5-minute break, we'll basically be continuing this hearing at 7:30 as our next scheduled hearing of the non-agenda items, or the agenda items that were not of the scheduled time. I think we have gone through them all. So right now we are just waiting for our next, looks like 4 hearings. But we are ahead of time, and technically speaking, we're not supposed to start the hearing early, so that anybody who wishes to get here and make comment on said hearings can do so, because the agendas are posted in advance. We really need to stick to the time that we tell random people that we'll be having the hearing. So again, apologize for the 5-minute break and having to listen to my voice this entire time. But we hope to be continuing again in 7:30 with our next hearing. So I'll just say quickly to any of the new people that have just been let in, we are awaiting starting our next hearing time. Our next official hearing time is at 7:30. We've moved through the rest of our agenda, so now we are just kind of in a holding pattern for 2 minutes to make sure everybody who wanted to be present for this hearing can be present. So I apologize for the dead air, and I appreciate your patience, but we will be starting up again in approximately 2 minutes. Okay. Commission members, Paul, Jim, are you both still available?
Yeah,
All right.
here.
That is excellent. All right. In that case, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent filed for 711/713 Main Street. Is the applicant or rep of the applicant here tonight? I'm seeing Tim's here tonight. And yep, Tim, can I unmute you? Let me see.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Back? Okay.
Evening.
Hi.
I see we've got Dan and Nick from our team still waiting for Dave. If you wouldn't mind granting me a minute, let me just reach out and see if I can grab Dave. I'll mute myself while I do that.
Not at all. Go for it. Say, hey, Tim.
Yes. Hey, Brian. Thank you. I just tried and was not able to reach Dave.
Oh, I think he's just coming in now.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, looky there. Awesome.
Excellent. All right.
Great. Hi, Dave. There he is.
Perfect.
Hey, Dave, thanks for joining us. The chair has just opened our hearing.
So if I remember from last time, the two things kind of was looking for is you were making the argument this was kind of a riverfront redevelopment, because we had run into the too much square footage really being disturbed for us to really touch the project. And you had submitted how you thought you basically had overcome that. And I've been reading through those, trying to figure those out with the town, and trying to talk to some conservation agents from other towns to see how they read it, how they interpret the law. Is the law being interpreted correctly? All of that good stuff. So I'm moving forward with that. In the interim, we did get comments back from DEP. I'm assuming you guys got these same comments too.
We did receive those. Thanks.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was not in time to respond in a way that could be meet the Thursday noon deadline, but we did have a chance to sort of read through those and briefly sidebar ourselves. So
Okay.
we are have at least sort of begun to prepare our adjustments.
Okay. Well, that might make it easier. That because what I was going to suggest tonight was that as we still kind of move things with the town to make sure that it is, we can legally condition this as a, what was it, as riverfront redevelopment and all of that we can follow that. As we progress with that, I was going to ask if you wanted to address some of the things they're saying, but B, the other thing I wanted to see is if you wanted to try to set up a site visit. With the plans you have now, be curious to actually get out there on site and see where everything's going to be laid out again. And especially as it pertains to some of the questions they had here. I don't know if many of their questions you may be able to answer without really having to explain things on site, but to actually get out on site, see where the new plans, where everything is going to be laid out, to take a look at that. And then to also try to get answers to the questions that kind of DEP put forward, and see if we come up with any additional questions ourselves. I don't know. I was going to kind of ask you if you kind of want to go through some of the things that DEP was talking about this evening, or if you'd prefer, if we're scheduling a site visit and we're going to come back, if you'd rather prepare something formal and submit it for next meeting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I think, I guess, the ideal seems like, why not take advantage of our time together? We've given these things a little thought. Why not share those thoughts with you and
Sure.
kind of hit the ground running a little bit? And for that, I think I'll turn it over to probably most of our reaction is going to come from Dave, and Dan, you may have some points to sort of pepper in. But before I pass it off, I'll just say we'd be happy to set up a site visit. I think even if only on time alone, enough time has passed that I think a refresher would be valuable.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure procedurally how you want to handle that. If you guys want to, determine a couple dates and let us know what works for you.
Yeah, we'll reach out. We'll probably ask somebody from the town to reach out tomorrow to see if they can't set up some dates between now and our next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. We're wide open to that.
Excellent. All right.
Terrific.
In that case, did you want to go through some of DEP's things with adding the scale bar? I'm sure if you submit an updated plan, you can put the scale bar on there, but just some of the other questions that they had. And I'm not sure what the best order to go through it in. I don't know, Dave, if there's a good way that you'd like to address some of their questions. Oh,
thanks, Dave. I think you're muted.
I got to turn my microphone on.
that helps sometimes.
There you go. All right.
So I think maybe just starting from the top and working our way down. A lot of the questions at the well, at least I think this is the way it came in, are in regard to the town land. And
Yep.
my experience with DEP is they don't consider lawn to be natural, a natural landscape, because you've cleared the forest to create a lawn that wasn't there before. So every time I've tried to say it's not a degraded area, they tell me it is degraded because lawn is a natural, and here they're trying to tell me it's natural. Why would we consider it degraded? So I guess we'd have to ask the commission how they feel about a lawn that's been planted. Is not something that naturally occurring in nature. I mean, we would consider it degraded just because we've turned that area that was perhaps wooded or treed or something into a landscape feature, which is considered degraded. And I guess the other part of that is, how would it meet the 4D, which is
Okay.
well, 310, 5A through E. I guess we are, one of the things they called it was paving the inner riparian zone. I believe the area we are proposing some special, and Tim could probably tell you more about the type of material we're using for the parking lot, but it's not paving to become impervious. The area would be pervious, but I think we were looking at not using pervious pavers, but more of a grass, I don't know if it's a grass paver or something.
Yeah, it's always been our intent to use a pervious material there. But in response to Kimberly's comments, we did a little bit of homework on a material that Dan has had some experience with, and it's called turf grid. Is that right, Dan? It's a kind of a highly durable plastic grid that stabilizes a growth medium, a kind of mixture of a sort of engineered ratio of growth medium materials, and that would be detailed such that it's over a substrate that has some storage capacity, so a kind of graduated dimension of gravel through Dan, you can fill in the blanks, two or three layers, such that what one sees from the surface at the top is grass. There's the grid material, which serves to stabilize and kind of contain and manage that, and then beneath that is a couple of layers of substrate that provide some storage to that water that's infiltrated for a kind of slow dissipation and recharge. So I think that's what you were describing, Dave and Dan. Did I get that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the parking, we're talking about the parking spaces on town land along the access road to the town common. It's currently grass there, and our plan is to change it to a different type of grass that allows people to park on it, basically. And then underneath this grass paver surface, well, it's not a paver, it's a grass grid, basically. And then underneath that, there is various layers of different size gravel to filter and store runoff that falls onto that parking space.
All right. But that's a stormwater calculation, right? That's not a conservation calculation. That's just required for stormwater management on site.
Right, but I think the comment from DEP was saying that was assuming that was going to be paved when it's really just going from grass to grass.
Gotcha. All right.
So I guess we're saying we're not changing the
Yeah,
area.
I guess what you're, I mean, I guess that would possibly come down to the commission, right? And I
Yeah.
have the turf grid information written down. I kind of want to look that up and to, learn more about turf grid, what it is and how it's rated and what people are saying about it. But yeah, I can see where that stop is right there because they are saying that it's not degraded. I can understand you saying it's going basically from grass to grass with the turf grid on it. And I think that would probably come down to the commission, is my guess, but that is something I will find an answer to.
So as far as meeting the other
Yep.
standards for redevelopment, we're not getting any closer to the brook than we currently are. And, we're not increasing the amount of area that's being changed. And by providing filters underneath, we actually are improving we're providing the stormwater. That's not considered an improvement, but there's no stormwater there, so we are providing the stormwater for that area. So yeah, let's see, is it closer? We're not going to be closer. And regarding the total alteration on the entire site, including our site, since 1996, there's been no new development on the site. It's been the same for decades. So, because there's no new development, there was nothing that exceeded the 5,000 or 10% for new development prior to this proposal. So we were fully developed prior to the Rivers Act, so we're allowed to not exceed our previous developed total. We can meet that or improve it by reducing it, and we are reducing it a little bit and improving that which is remaining. So I think it's like 10,500 square feet. So it's it's well over the thresholds for a brand new development, but as redevelopment, that's our threshold is the maximum. So we're going to be below that. The part about underneath the barn, I mean, we can obviously, the shading really wouldn't be that much of an impact. We can provide shade tolerant vegetation there. We are going to clean up the area because there's a lot of debris from the fallen down walls of the foundation walls that have fallen in there. And so we're proposing to clean the area up anyways, but we can provide a planting schedule that would be a little more shade tolerant and more wildlife friendly underneath there. And the monitoring for invasives, I guess that's something that the commission would probably put in the order of conditions if you want monitoring, how long you want monitoring, what type of reports you want. We're not opposed to providing the monitoring. It would benefit us to monitor that actually for the invasives because of all the knotweed in the area. That's going to be a tough one to control.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And right, as far as the stormwater, we're not saying it's an improvement to the site to meet the improving the site requirements. We're just saying that there was zero stormwater previously. So we are now meeting the stormwater requirements by providing stormwater control, which technically it is an improvement, but we're not claiming it to be part of the improvement to the site. We're just saying we meet the stormwater conditions. And I guess the other one was about the landscaping.
Yeah, but what's being planned around the septic tanks and the pump chamber?
Yeah, I think we're gonna put together a more defined landscaping plan. One that shows how we're protecting the septic tank and the pump. And we're also not just gonna line up, rows of trees and make it a little more natural out there. So that's something that we'll probably provide a more detailed plan to you for the next meeting. But we're not proposing the plant right on top of all these septic features. Yeah, mitigation and manicured apple orchard. Well, I'm not trying to do the manicured apple orchard, so that'll all be encompassed under that.
I was going to say that's something we can review when we kind of see that full planting plan.
Right. And that's the next question about the mitigation plan and their location and spacings and that's all pretty much a landscaping plan for or mitigate. You can call it anything you want, mitigation, landscaping, but that would all be put together as for more detailed information at the next meeting.
Okay.
But we just wanted to let you know we're not doing an apple orchard on top of the septic system.
Cool. It's good to know. All right. All right. That kind of, I'm looking at DEP's comments. That kind of goes through everything they had mentioned. And again, I have my homework. I want to look into that turf grid a bit more, and I definitely want to talk to the town a little bit more about what you're proposing, which makes sense to me. But again, they may have different thoughts on it. So that's it. I don't think I have any additional questions myself right now, but let me put it out to members of the commission. Do you have any comments, questions, or thoughts on what we just heard?
Yeah, I get the same kind of question on this turf grid. It's not grass, it's plastic, right?
Oh, the product called turf grid is plastic. Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking at it on the web right now. So it's plastic, and then you're going to have gravel underneath it, right?
So yeah, I mean the plastic is in a vertical orientation, right? So it's these kind of open cells, and their role is to stabilize the growth medium. So one does not see a horizontal plane of plastic.
Okay, and the grass grows up through it, I guess is the way it works, right? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yep.
doesn't it look like a honeycomb almost with grass goes
it's very
up?
much like that. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen those in other places.
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to understand better, maybe for future, is the calculations. How much is how many square feet, like you talked about, that it is today is disturbed, and how much it will be in the future, how that's actually worked out. Maybe you provided that before and I just need to look it up, but that's the one thing that is that I'm still learning how this when you do a redevelopment on the existing waterfront, how that actually works.
Right. I did put some numbers in that little report that I gave you at the last meeting. So we were just under 10,500 square feet of developed area in the lot previously, prior to the Rivers Act. So that would be our 10,478 square feet. So that would be the maximum that we could redevelop on the lot, and we're proposing to reduce that as much as we can. Not that much, but we are reducing that somewhat.
Yep.
And improving the conditions that exist at the site.
Good.
Any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And I'm not seeing any. All right. So in that case, if you guys want to get together the planting plan and the official answers to the DEP questions, I will do my homework with the town, and we will try, probably reach out tomorrow or the next day. Somebody from the town will probably reach out to try to set up a site visit before our next meeting. So with that said, our next meeting is October 3rd. Are you all right with me continuing until said time?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Is that 2 weeks out? Forgive me, I don't have my calendar. in front of
It's
me.
the first Tuesday in October. I'm not sure if it's 3 this time. No, it should be 2. Should be 2 again.
Yep, 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Okay, so any new graphic materials will be due midday on the 28th. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the Thursday beforehand. Right.
Yeah, the 3rd would be great. We'll
All right.
forward to seeing you then.
Beautiful. And we'll get a site visit set up before then, hopefully. I'm sure we can. All right. In that case, I'm going to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 711/713 Main Street until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 3rd at 7:10 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jim,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. All right. Thank you again, and we will be seeing you shortly, hopefully, and talking to you in 2 weeks, if not.
Thank you.
Take care.
Very much.
Okay. All right. Everybody is ready. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the open public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent for 580 Main Street, map 4.C, parcel 24. Is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here this evening? Jeff O'Neill, or I am not seeing anyone here tonight for this. This was for the demolition of the office building at 580 Main. Interesting. All right. Sorry, our good friends at Town Hall have been trying to forward us all the information that comes into Conservation Commission. And we've kind of got it in drips and drabs. So I just want to make sure and see if I've gotten anything from them.
I think we were looking for a file, a DEP file. Brian,
So that was basically it. At last meeting, we were waiting to see if DEP had any comments, if they had provided them with a file number, and we were going to take it from there. I didn't see anything. I think Don was good enough to forward along DEP comments for the last hearing. I don't know if he had gotten anything yet for 580 Main Street, and I'm not sure. They may have reached out and asked to continue. What time we are? Yeah, I think we're 15 minutes past the start of the hearing, so I think they've had appropriate time to get here. I'm going to assume that there wasn't a DEP file number yet, or there was some sort of miscommunication, and go ahead and try to continue this. So that said, I'm going to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 580 Main Street until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 3rd at 7:20 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Jim?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. And I know I see Kelly Cardoza's here. I know our next hearing is at 8. And for those who weren't here earlier, we do apologize. We've gotten through most of our agenda. and our times can be a little off, but when we advertise it for 8, we try not to start before 8 in case anybody wants to come to give public comment. So I apologize for just rambling on, but we have about 2 more minutes to kill. I should ask commission members, anybody have any new business, anything they want to discuss conservation wise that either, well, I guess we got through everything on the agenda. Anything that wasn't on the agenda that you wanted to discuss this evening? All right, well, that is a plus. Hi, Kelly. Okay, I think we are close enough that we can get started. And I know this isn't an official public hearing. This is just an administrative review. So I don't need to officially open it, but I will introduce it. It looks like we have Kelly Cardoza with us this evening from Avalon Consulting Group. And if I am correct, you are proposing some changes to your NOI for work on the Pines Golf Course. Am I correct in that?
You are. So good evening. I have with me tonight also Paul McManus from Ecotech and Frank McPartlin from Dillis and Roy, and then Steve Alden, who is the general manager at the International.
Okay.
So as you described, we come before you this evening with a request for an administrative modification to that order. It was issued on April 19th of 2023, and the course is undergoing construction at this point in time. The order generally was prepared to take a 145-acre golf course and shrink it down to 80 acres. So this particular architect works on the concept of smaller, shorter, more compact and naturalized golf area. So as detailed in the letter that we submitted to you during the shaping process, they have identified a number of places where they could reduce the footprint of the irrigated turf. At the same time, they've identified a number of places where we think the overall impact of the project could be reduced, and a couple of areas where they'd like to make some changes. So we submitted this letter as required under Special Condition 6 of the order, which basically tells us that if we're going to make any changes, we have to come to you and ask you, or ask the commission in writing, if those changes are substantial enough to require a new filing. So we filed that with the commission. I spoke with Don, and he indicated that your general feeling was that we were asking for too many changes. So I wanted to let you know that we heard this, and Paul McManus and I met today with the club and encouraged them to limit their requests to those that they really need right now to keep the construction going, and also to those that we think have a clear reduction in impact from what we had originally proposed. So within this list that I had submitted, there are 3 things that fall into that category, and I'll go ahead and describe them, and also ask Paul or Frank to hop in if there's anything that I miss as we go through here. So would you like me to share the screen and show you the plans that we submitted?
Please.
Okay, let me go ahead and okay, are you seeing that now?
Yeah, yes, now I am.
Okay. Hold on here. I want to just go down one page. Okay, so the first is generally a modification to means and methods. Right here, this is what we call wetland G. It's a pond. There is a concrete block wall that exists here, and it has been there for many, many years. The approved plans and narrative talk about removing that wall and installing a cofferdam approximately at the location of this dashed line. What we've realized as we've gotten through the process a little more is that those blocks are not cemented together. And so rather than having an excavator come in and take them out, it's possible to go ahead and remove them by hand. So what we'd like to do is what we think is a reduction in impact. Rather than putting in the cofferdam and dewatering, we would put in a turbidity curtain, then just in case anything fell into the water. And then these blocks would then be removed by hand, put into a small cart, and taken to an area outside the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission for either reuse on site or disposal off site, depending on what they choose to do. So we believe that this is essentially a reduction in impact because there's no need to use an excavator. And based on that, we'd like to ask you to allow us to proceed without the requirement for the cofferdam and to allow us to use a turbidity curtain instead. And in the plans, in the details, I could show you at the end, but it's a standard turbidity curtain detail that Frank has provided on these plans. So that is the first of the questions. Paul, did I miss anything?
Well, I was just going to add, Kelly, that because the cofferdam that we propose is basically it's kind of a big sausage that you fill with water that kind of conforms to the bottom. The turbidity curtain can be placed just within a foot or two of the wall, and that would be the intent, so that it's analogous to a silt fence, but it's designed to hang in the water and go to the bottom. But by its nature, it can conform to the shape, that curved shape of the wall, and be very, very tight to the wall. And because of its nature, the cofferdam, the big sausage, as it were, has a much bigger footprint than the turbidity curtain, which is basically just, as I said, it's the fabric that's weighted on the bottom. So that's the difference. It would really tighten everything up.
Yeah, if I may, just to expand on that a little bit, Paul. Well, there's not a specific detail for that on the plan, Kelly. What it is, yeah, it's a floating silt fence. So there are flotation devices at the top with buoys spaced every so many feet, and the bottom is weighted with, most of the time, like a chain that's run through a loop in the bottom of the curtain. These I've used in many low locations to great effect. I've used them in most recently was in Fresh Pond when we knocked a hole in the shoreline. So they work really well, and they're no complaints.
There's similar like oil. I always think of it as like the oil buoys. I know we had them proposed one other place, and that's what
similar.
Yeah.
They're
float along the top to keep everything, and then they'll drop enough. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're similar to that, and they tend to have enough slack so that the bottom of the curtain is always on the bottom of the pond of the water surface in case it fluctuates. Only the top would move, and the bottom would the weighted bottom would stay on the bottom of the water body to keep any potential migration of material contained.
And I was gonna say, can one of you remind me what once that wall was removed, are we basically just letting that pond kind of form a natural edge? I'm trying to think what goes in there as the wall gets removed, or we're just updating to a new wall, or
we would go back to exactly what was shown on the plans. So a 3-to-1 slope.
Yep.
And a series of natural plantings.
Okay.
Yeah. So wall completely removed.
Yep. Okay. Did you want to go one space at a time?
So the next location.
Yep.
Is on. Well, I guess it's up to you. Do you want to rule on one space at a time, or you want to hear these three?
I was going to say, I'm trying to think what's best. It might be best if we just talk about one space, at least just to open it up at one space at a time while it's fresh. Because I was going to say, for the one we just went through, I think I'm comfortable with that. I can understand what you're proposing and why. I appreciate that it's hand removal rather than machinery in there, and I have seen the turbidity curtains proposed, at least in the past, and it would seem fine for what you are proposing to do here to me. But I want to open it up to other commission members on that. Do you have thoughts, comments, or questions on this first proposed change?
Oh, this looks okay to me.
Looks good.
Okay, and any members of the public here tonight to comment or have any questions about what we just heard about that particular change? All right, and I'm not seeing any. All right, in that case, do we want to move on to the second proposed change or modification?
So I've changed now to sheet C 1.4 of the revised plans. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still on 1.4. Now I'm on 1.3 of the revised plans. And what we're talking about is the red outlined area here. We had in the approved plans asked to do horizontal directional drilling that would have been underneath this slope all the way to the fairway at this location. And the reason was because we didn't think we had enough cover on this existing bridge. And as they went through the construction, they found out that there is 24 inches of cover. And because this is an irrigation pipe, not a public water supply pipe, we're going to blow it out. And we don't have to worry about it freezing. So what they'd like to do at this point is, rather than do horizontal directional drilling, which is a pretty big effort, they'd like to go ahead and do open trench for the installation of this pipe through this area, which is in your jurisdiction. This is an area that is fully within the limit of work and fully being excavated and reshaped and graded as shown on the existing plan. So at the end of the day, there'll be no grading changes from what you've already approved. The one thing I would say is that on the letter that I sent you, I said it was a 3-inch pipe, and it's really a 6-inch pipe. But it still doesn't make any difference. There's 24 inches of cover there, so there'll be about 18 inches of cover over the pipe at that location. We think that the ground disturbance associated with this work versus the directional boring is reduced. And the goal would be to do this work in September or October, assuming that you approve it, simply to keep the construction process moving.
So I just add the bottom line from my perspective is that there's no additional footprint of work proposed. This is an area that's as Kelly said, it's already being graded. It's it's being opened up. It's being graded. The difference is that while that's happening, there would be a trench, pipe laid over, backfilled. But you wouldn't see any. You wouldn't see any difference relative to what you've already approved in terms of footprint or final product.
Yeah, I can completely see that being the case. I guess my only question would be, I'm trying to look at erosion controls for the open trench as opposed to the boring. In other words, if you're trenching across that basic causeway right there, are you proposing any additional erosion controls, anything to prevent what you're trenching from migrating down into those ponds? And Frank, please.
So at that causeway, we do have erosion controls installed, are both proposed on the plan and installed, that wrap around. So those are already in place in the causeway itself. And this pipe would be installed within that limit of work. So and Paul, do you is that more or less correct what you've seen out there?
That's true, and actually at this area, this is an area that during my regular monitoring I've been very focused on because of the slope coming down from those tees. So what's not shown on the plan is that there are a bunch of additional erosion control BMPs, within the footprint of work. There's a series of sediment traps. There's additional, there's erosion controls shown at the toe of the slopes there. There's actually through this area, there's additional set of erosion controls at the top of the slope. As you come through there, come over the crossing and keep going. So there's a lot going on there, in terms of erosion controls, in addition to what we initially proposed. Like I said, just because you know, standing there, it's one of those things, you go out there all the time and, you know, you try and anticipate things, you see where the water's going, and so you know, I keep them pretty busy out there augmenting. And they've, to their credit, you know, the contractor's been very responsive to everything that I've asked.
And that's really the only proposed change for this section is basically the open trench backfilled instead of the straight bore.
Yes.
Nothing else has changed. Okay. All right. So any members of the commission have questions or comments about this particular part of what they're proposing? And just say not seeing any members of the public here tonight have any comment or question on that. Okay. All right.
The third one is on the same sheet. And what we had proposed is that there would be a connection for the clubhouse and other associated buildings to the Clinton water, public water supply. And that would allow them to abandon well 4. Since we filed with you, we met with DEP. They identified a number of concerns that they had about well 3, particularly its age. And so the club has thought that what they'd like to do is connect well 3 to the public water, connect the maintenance facility to the public water supply, allowing them to abandon well 3. So the original plan showed that there would be a horizontal bore, and there will still be a horizontal bore that comes up here. And then the water line ran essentially parallel to this force main outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. The maintenance facility is essentially due north of this location. So what we'd like to do is, as shown on this plan, run the water line through this area that used to be a paved cart path, but we're removing the pavement. And so we're already grading and working that area, and then run it straight up this paved cart path area. So it's a similar situation. You won't see a change in grading. You won't see anything different. We're already working in this area. We already have erosion control in this area, but what we would have is a new 4-inch pipe that would be below the turf in this area right here, and below the cart path in this area right here. And this is your 100-foot buffer zone to this wetland here on hole 1. So these are the 3 items that we think have a reduction in impact. In the case of the block wall removal, the installation of the irrigation pipe, there's a reduction. And in the case of the water line, there's really not going to be any impact, because this water line would be underneath the paved cart path at this location in an area that we're already grading. We're hoping that the commission can find that this work can be approved administratively, which will allow it to proceed this fall. As I said, there were 2 other things, and I'm happy to discuss them, but I did get the sense from Dawn that you felt like that was a lot. So whichever you'd like to do, you know, we're happy to proceed with.
Sure. Well, I was curious about the other one. One of the other ones was tree removal, if I'm correct.
It was
Right.
tree removal on the 17th hole and a small area on 15. Do you want to just, between the 2 of you, discuss this piece, and then we can go back and look at those other 2?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I those other 2 had come up first, so we kind of skipped ahead, which is perfectly fine. Yes, this one threw me the most when I was reading through it. And again, maybe it shouldn't. I just need to read through it again, and I see how you're proposing and what you're proposing. But when we're talking about connecting to public water supplies and deadheading wells, and now we're, you know, further connecting to the Clinton water supply, and we're going to deadhead another well, that's when it starts to, I'd almost like to see that more on an NOI than an as-built. That's part of the project that really kind of threw me. Some of the other stuff I could see, but when we're talking about connecting to public water supplies and where they're going to go to, those are things I don't like to do as a field amendment. But that's just my initial thoughts on this one. This is the one I was having the most trouble with when I was reading through all of the plans.
So let me help you understand that process.
Please.
So there are a couple of things. There are some PFAS concerns in well number 4. And so on the plans that have been approved at this point in time, we already have the connection of the clubhouse and other things. The maintenance facility uses somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 or 400 gallons a day. It's a very low use. And we did a sanitary survey with DEP, and we've been talking to them. It's a multi-year process to make this connection to the public water supply. We've been talking to Clinton about it. We have to go to the MWRA. We've had some communications with them. And so it's a detailed process, but it makes sense to put the pipes in the ground now, because we're essentially ripping up an entire golf course, and they're never going to want to do that again in the future. So we have, well, I guess from 1955 till now. So maybe they're going to want to do it in the future, but I won't be here for that. I'll tell you. So the thought is that since the well at well 3 at the maintenance facility is the oldest well on the property, that maybe it makes sense to connect that one to the public water supply as well. So all we're trying to do at this point is this horizontal directional drilling is already approved. The location of this sending and receiving pit has already been approved. All we're doing now is extending a water line. And if we went to the old plans, the water line comes outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, parallel to this force main, and runs along that way here. Sorry, I just clicked something, and that was not what I intended to do. But 2, 3. So that's what we're proposing to do at this point in time. We're not, this request doesn't change anything that we did for well 4 or for the clubhouse.
No, I completely understand that. Now, how much further is this additional water line? How many additional feet to connect up the maintenance facility to that?
So it's approximately within your jurisdiction, 200 feet.
What's the full length of the line? Outside of our, yeah.
Frank, do you know?
1,400 feet, I think, was the maintenance line. Maybe 1,000, including only that small 200 feet in your jurisdiction.
And Kelly, this is all just for potable water, not irrigation water, correct?
Correct. This is just drinking water. So it's a very small, amount of water. The international uses about 18,000 gallons of water a day. This is about 300 gallons of that would be for the maintenance facility.
Yeah, and again, my concern isn't the amount of water going through, it's the disturbance to run that additional pipe, which again, I think is fine, but I'm not sure it's something that necessarily we want to get into the habit of doing as a field amendment. In other words, that to me is a significant enough change that we really shouldn't set the precedent that you can just do that as a field amendment. I would have a hard time agreeing to that particular one just for that reason. And if you're not planning to, if you're not connecting to Clinton yet, and you're still trying to work through with them, and you're still trying to work through with Board of Health, you might want to come back and file for that one separately. But I would have trouble, and again, I'll ask other commission members. I'm 1 vote out of 3 tonight. But I would have trouble adding that to a field amendment, a change like that. Or an addition like that. I should say it's an addition. It's not so much a change. It's an additional unit getting fitted in. That's basically that. Again, just my thoughts.
Understood. That's why we came to you with the idea that we would talk about which of these fell into which category. And if that's how the commission feels, then we'll withdraw that request from today's list.
Okay. All right, we can do that. Do you want to go through the other two items on there real quick?
Sure. Let me see. So the next one is tree removal at 17 T's.
Yep.
So you had approved, let's see if I can, it's right here. You had approved 1, 2, 3, 4 trees in the original order. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees here that they would like to take out. They're about, so the wetland is, this is a pretty strong slope. There's a pond here. This is the edge of the pond, and we are essentially at the top of the slope, about 60 feet for the closest tree and about 90 feet for the others. And the trees range in size from 11 inches to 28 inches DBH. We would propose to cut the trees and leave the stumps, similar to how we did in wetland N, so that would reduce the amount of impact to the ground, certainly. As we did on the others, tree limbs and slash would be chipped into a truck, transferred outside the area. And then consistent with how they've always managed these areas, the vegetation surrounding those stumps would not be removed, and the area will be mowed or weed whacked once annually in the fall, and this area will not be irrigated.
Okay. I think I'm comfortable with. I'm trying to picture where it was out there. I'm not sure the reason why you need to make this change, but I think I am comfortable with that as a field modification. And again, I know you are giving back a lot of, you're regreening a lot of areas, so I'm okay with what's being proposed as far as the removal of those trees, especially leaving the stumps and plates, doing the once-a-year mowing, basically. But let me open that up to commission members. Anybody else have any initial thoughts, comments, questions on that?
Not really, but I'm also a little curious why this wasn't part of the original plan. What changed?
The architect is a gentleman by the name of Bill Core, and he stood out here and said he wanted those trees gone after the original ones were already down. And not being a golf course architect, I can't help you with that. I just know that Mr. Core goes out and he sees things that the rest of us don't see until they're already constructed.
Okay. It may not be in the play, but visually, maybe they. Yeah, got it.
So this is the 17th hole.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
All right. Any members of the public?
Go to the next one.
Well, just, public members, and again, not seeing any, want to comment, questions? Last chance. All right. Yeah, Kelly, if you wouldn't mind moving to the last one. Hole
Okay.
15, is it? Yeah.
And so the next one is on the 15th hole. So I need to go to a different sheet. Hold on here. So this is the 15th hole. So the 15th hole is very similar to the existing hole that's there. And so this is the pond that's here. This has always been fairway, and this was fairway up in here. There was a tree line hanging over it, but underneath that was all in this entire area was maintained as maintained turf. This was one of the areas that we gave back because they said that the edge of, and they, I mean by the architect, indicated that the edge of maintained turf would be this kind of gold brown line. And as they look at playing that hole now, in the way the hole was played before, this water was always in play. And so that's why there was maintained turf on this side here. What they'd like to do is have that also be maintained turf. It's 1,750 square feet that is currently actively maintained. And in our plan was going to be shown as non-irrigated turf grasses. And what they'd like to now make it into is irrigated turf grasses. And so that's the change that we're asking you for here. There's no grading changes are proposed. The slope will stay exactly as it is. It's simply replanting it as turf grasses and irrigating it.
And Kelly, if I may, those two trees with the X's in them, those were approved. Those have already been approved to be removed.
They have, and they're gone at this point in time.
And that's right, and they are gone.
I guess similar to the last one, I can appreciate knowing the full size of the plan that you were regreening a lot of areas. So if you want to regreen a little less for your reasons of aesthetics or to do this, I do not have an issue with that. I don't really have any questions or problems with this as it's proposed, this particular one. But let me open that up again to commission members. Anybody have comments and or questions regarding, is this whole 15, right?
Yes.
Right, whole 15 right there.
No, I'm okay.
And once again, any members of the public here tonight, comments, questions regarding this particular phase of this project? And again, not seeing any. All right. So all of that said, and I know you're looking to get some sort of resolution tonight because you're working on things. Would you be comfortable, and I'll put this out to the commission members too, but let me ask you first, Kelly, would you be comfortable if we were to approve the changes that you are putting forward as field amendments and ask that they all be added to the as-built when it's done, which is kind of standard, but not include the part about the irrigation currently?
So I think you mean the public water supply.
The addition of the public water supply under the paved cart path near hole 1.
Yes.
Okay.
So we would either redesign that or come back to you with a filing at a later time.
I think that would be fine. And again, it kills me that Rebecca and our agent isn't here. She would know the answer to that 100%, but I would think that would be possible, and that's probably the best way to do that.
Okay, that sounds fine. And Steve, I can't see you because I only see certain faces, but I'm assuming that based on our conversation today, we're good with this?
Yes.
Okay, then yes, we'll go ahead.
We're good
with that.
All right. So other commission members comfortable with that? Makes sense. Other questions, comments, changes?
Makes sense.
All right. So as this is an administrative review, I don't have to officially close it. So I guess what I would like to do is to call for a roll call vote on the proposed field amendments for the renovation of the Pines golf course at the International. And I'm going to call for a roll call vote based on the letter we received from Avalon Consulting September 7th of 2023. That we are in agreement that we approve the modification to means and methods for the irrigation installation on hole 14. That we are comfortable with the tree removal on hole 17, the modification to limit of work on hole 15. But we also agree that we do not agree to the addition of the public water supply line under the paved cart path near hole 1. Go ahead, please, Kelly.
One more. The modification to means and methods for the block wall removal on.
Yeah, the first one. And so again, it's a roll call vote to approve the field amendments laid out in the letter from Avalon Consulting of September 7th, 2023. Including the modification of means and methods to the block wall removal and renaturalization at Pond G, the modification means and methods to the irrigation installation on hole 14, the additional tree removal as proposed this evening, the modification to the limit of work on hole 15, and not the addition of the public water supply line under the paved cart path near hole 1. All those that are in agreement with these field amendments and not field amendment, please say aye. Starting with Jim Garrihy.
Aye.
Paul Brandvold,
I will have to abstain.
and all right, and I am an I as well. All right, so Kelly, that should be all that you need. I will check in with Town Hall tomorrow to see if they need to send you anything additional. Again, I know all these proposed changes are gonna be on the as-built when we get it. I did mention the letter publicly that you had sent us, and I know we have a copy of that. Is there anything else you would need from us this evening, or any additional questions you have?
No, but what I will tell you is, just because time passes, I'll write you a letter that says, thank you very much. This is my understanding that you administratively approve the following, so that we'll all have the letter from me in the file, but then there'll be a second letter where you took the action and said, yes, 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 no.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
it'll all be clear, and we won't have to remember this when we come back for an as-built and we're getting a certificate of compliance.
That is perfect. And can I ask, if you do write that letter, I had jotted down a note to myself, and I failed miserably to mention the change from the 3-inch pipe to the 6-inch pipe. I know it was originally proposed 6-inch. I think it was just a typo in the letter for 3-inch, just to make sure in your final understandings that we change it back to 6-inch.
Yes, I will make sure.
Okay, that's it. Thank you all,
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
and we will
Thank you
be
very
talking
much.
to you, I'm sure. Yeah, good luck with everything.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. All right, last up this evening. It looks like we have an appointment for 472 Sugar Road, 60 parcel 77. Is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here this evening? And I'm not seeing anyone. It looks like, and I got it in our package. It looks like they had submitted the construction schedule, which I could be wrong. I'll have to follow up tomorrow with Town Hall on this one. Might have been part of their OOC. This was that person building a pool house. Remember him? And it looks like we've got a construction schedule for them, and I wasn't sure if that was just part of the OOC that we needed to receive and approve the construction schedule before they begin, or something along those lines. So I was hoping one of them would be here tonight to see exactly what this was regarding. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that anybody is. So I will follow up with Town Hall tomorrow to see what, if anything, we need to do on that. And it may simply be that we just need to file it, that they just need to send us their construction schedule and have it on file. I'm not sure. It might need to be approved by Rebecca, in which case I'm guessing one of us can possibly approve it. But I think we don't need to do that in a meeting. That makes sense. And I'm open to any other thoughts on what that might be referring to. All right. So that said, it looks like we have gotten through everything in our agenda. Did I miss anything? And again, is there anything that either of you would like to discuss?
Yeah, all set. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. Hopefully we did not mess anything up too bad. And we have made it through 2 meetings without Rebecca, which I didn't think we'd make it through one. So somehow we've come to this point. All of that said, I would like to make one final lovely motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, September 19th, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Jim.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you.
Brian.